crushing objections. Today in this video, we're going to be talking about the different type of objections. We're going to do a role play, but most importantly, we're going to talk about how Dan, who's a master when it comes to closing and handling objections, we're going to talk about that, but also how it's done on different platforms so that you can see the contrast. Dan and I, we have very different personalities. Our platforms might be different, but one of the things you might notice is there could be many similarities as well as differences when it comes to handling objections.
That's right.
So today, why don't we start off with like the most common one of them all, which is, I want to be able to do it, but I don't have the money. Let's start off with that.
Yeah, so if I'm on the phone, now usually, I want to just talk a little bit about it first. Most people, when they're closing on the phone, they like to talk about money at the end.
Right.
Where they will talk about the features, the benefit, the product, the company history, everything else. And then they get to the end, oh, this is $5,000. And the prospect's like, whoa, what the hell, right? It's like they freaked out. I do the opposite. I like to talk about money quite early on. So I would find out about their needs. The moment I find out about their needs, then I would transition into money very, very quickly, right? So let's say the example, they say, well, I can't afford it, right? So when people say that they can't afford it, most of the time, sometimes they actually can't afford it. But what they're actually saying is, I don't know if I see the value in this, right? It's a value question, right? Yep. So, example, when they say, well, I'll have you handle it first and I'll demonstrate. How's that?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so when somebody says, I don't have the money, like you said, right, they don't see the value. Because if a person could pay $5,000 and get $10,000 in return, that would be a no-brainer. So ultimately, what they're not seeing is the value.
Yeah.
So when somebody says they don't have the money, then what I'm going to show them, first of all, it could be the case that they really don't have the money.
Yeah,
but if in the case where they don't see the value, in my presentation, whether it's on a webinar, whether it's on a platform, one of the things I'll always do, depending on the price point, is this. Very similar to what you say, is this. If it's high ticket in nature, I want you to imagine a weighing scale, okay? Imagine that what people try to do is there's the value and then there's the price. Yeah. And people will pay the price if the price is less than the value.
Right.
So in other words, think about this. If you always talk about high ticket. In the presentation, if somebody is closing high ticket, imagine it's $30,000.
Yes.
The last thing you want to do is build up the value. You're doing an entire presentation, and then at the end, announce the price. Just imagine the weighing scale just totally tipping over. However, what if you did it like what you talked about, which is to introduce the price first, high ticket, $30,000 right at the start of your 2-day event, of your 90-minute presentation, or whatever it might be. And now you have all the time in the world to demonstrate the value so that there isn't that shocker in that weighing scale.
Very interesting.
So ultimately, when it comes to handling the objection of, I don't have the money, it is all about demonstrating the value to show that money is just a renewable resource. To show that if you could show them how they can save that money, make a lot more than the amount they're spending, that is when they'll be able to see that value.
Makes sense. So it's so interesting as I'm listening to this. When I'm on the phone, that's the great thing about the distinction, I would say, on the phone. On the phone, I have much more control. So I can make it much more custom. So imagine we've been on the phone for 15, 20 minutes. Let's say I'm selling your $7,000 package.
Right.
Okay, I'm selling a $7,000 package. And I'm a closer for you. You've been to, Peng Joon's event, and you're still on the fence. Now we're on the phone talking.
Yep.
And we've gone through your needs, why you attended the event, but why you haven't taken action. So imagine we're at this point, right?
Yep.
And now you're saying to me that, oh man,
I can't afford it. I don't have the money.
And I'll just call you John. How's that?
Okay.
You know what, John? I understand that. So just before I get off the phone, you told me that it was a pretty big commitment for you to attend Peng Joon's event, right?
Yeah.
What motivated you to attend the event in the first place?
I saw that he was very successful. I saw that other people did it as well.
Right.
But I still have apprehension because I failed in the past. I tried internet marketing before, and this is not my first time.
Right.
And I'm just scared of failing again.
Right. And how do you think this time is going to be any different?
I don't know. I feel that there's a possibility now that I've seen all these different case studies, but it's just very scary for me.
What are you afraid of?
I'm afraid of failing again, and then my wife is going to tell me, "I told you so." You know, you fell for yet another.
Or your
It was
friends
total
told
waste
you.
of time.
Yeah, and you're already, and then I think you mentioned that you're already in little bit of debt, right?
Yeah, and I just can't afford to fail anymore.
And John, let me ask you this, just before we go. Let's say you don't do this, and you don't have to invest. What are you gonna do?
Oh man, I'm going to continue doing what I've been doing. I mean, working on this job, you know, I don't hate it, but I don't see myself really changing my life if I continue doing what I'm doing.
So you're saying that if you continue working this job, it's okay, but ultimately
It's comfortable, but I know that it's not the life that I want, that I dream of.
and you both realize that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and hoping a different result, right?
Yes, I get that.
So if it's not Peng Joon's program, then what?
Maybe it's Dan Lok's program.
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe whatever program.
Yeah.
But what? Put a program aside. But what are you gonna do? How are you gonna solve this problem?
I want to do it, but I think now it just comes down to affordability. Like if there was some sort of thing that allows me to afford it each month or something, financing perhaps. I don't know if you do it, but that would definitely help me out.
What do you mean by that?
So since it's 7,000, could you
Correct.
like chop it up to, I don't know, if you have like a 0% financing or help me out in some way so that I could afford it through some sort of monthly payment. Because I can't afford to pay it lump sum right now, but
Right. Let me think about it. Well, John, just I'm not making any promises, but let's suppose I could offer you some kind of payment plan. What would you be comfortable putting down to show a commitment today?
20% of the full investment.
So 20% of that 7,000 is
So about 1,004 today. I'm
1,004?
comfortable with that.
1,004, and then the rest.
And then chop it up to say 12 months payments.
Okay, so
That
the,
would be
the rest.
comfortable for me.
So that's
yeah.
how much per month roughly?
So I'm not good at math, but I suppose like $500.
So okay.
Yeah.
So $1,400 today. Is that the best you can do?
Without my wife giving me problems, probably.
And then the $500 a month for 12 months. You're comfortable with that?
Yeah, I am.
And just suppose I was to accept that offer. What would you say to me?
I would say, let's do it. I'm committed.
Are you sure there's something you want to do?
Yeah.
But for me as your partner in this, what could I do to best support you when you move forward?
I want you to hold me by the hand.
Okay, hold you by the hands.
And show me step by step, move by move, what to do.
And if we could show you how to do that, are you gonna promise and promise yourself that you're gonna this time's gonna be different, right?
Yeah, I'm committed because this is it.
This is it.
I can't afford to fail.
That's awesome. So boom, off the role play. Well, you see, it's a very different conversation, right?
So now it's getting the other person to do the talking, selling. So notice the contrast here, right?
Yes.
That's one-on-one.
Yes.
Okay, on the phone. On platforms, I don't have the luxury to speak to 5,000 people, understanding like what their pain points are, where they're at in life, and what the exact consideration is. All I can do is to answer that blanket statement of I can't afford it, is to be able to show them that money is just a renewable resource, that the value that is provided on the thing that is being offered to them is either going to save them a lot more, it's either going to make them a lot more to build up the value. And I always ask these few questions, which is always, think about this, which is always the phrase, if all this did was result, would it be worth it?
Yes.
Right? So for example, it would be, if this program, if all this did was to help you close one additional client per month, would it be worth it for you?
Boom.
If all this did was to help you save 10% on your company overheads and expenses, would this be worth it? So now they're able to see that the value your role
Yeah,
as
the
the
contrast,
marketer,
yeah.
right? The contrast is to shift them to go from how much it costs to how much it is worth.
Yes.
And that is how you crush the objection of I can't afford it, one-on-one and on a platform.
That's right. And this, like, when you watch this, it might feel like, well, how am I ever gonna do that? Like, it's just so difficult. It's not like that. Both Peng and I, we came from humble beginnings. The skill that we have today, it took us a lot of effort to develop, right? That it is a learnable skill. But what we've done is, regardless platform closing or one-on-one closing, we have condensed decades, years of experience into literally like hours and days. So anyone coming in, you don't have to make the same mistake that we made, and you can learn this step by step. More than that, like even when I train my students, like my program, part of what makes it so unique is we go through 7 weeks of training, but each week when you learn something, they'll join our global role play platform. Kind of like what we've done.
Yeah.
They learn something and then they role play and they practice, right? And then learn something and they role play and they practice. So then it's not just passively watching videos, right?
And that's when it becomes permanent,
Yeah.
right? Because then we'll never be perfect. It's all about understanding the thing. Like I can do my entire platform closing speech while driving a car eating grapes. And that's because it's so ingrained in me because I've practiced over and over and over again. Same thing with when it comes to closing. Now, initially when we did this video, I wanted to cover like 20 different objections, but based on this alone, it looks like it's going to be a 90-minute video if we did all that. Okay, so we might do future videos talking about different objections, but right now this video, which is crushing the main objection of I can't afford it, has come down to this one thing, right? It is showing and exhibiting the value and getting them to transition from how much it costs to how much it is worth.
That's right. And then also, when you go into a conversation, the conviction that you have,
Yeah.
the belief you have for your product and service, that you know this is something that is good for them, it's going to help them solve the problems, that conviction is so critical. Because if you are not 100% convinced, it would come across, right? You come across, you're just after the money, just after commission, but do you believe in what you offer? That's very, very critical.
You gotta sell yourself on it first before you can sell the product.
100%.
Here's the thing, what we're gonna be doing is we're doing an upcoming masterclass where we're gonna reveal not just objections, because objections and crushing objections is just really a small piece of the entire puzzle. We're gonna reveal what the entire puzzle is. So if you're somebody who have always wanted to master the ability of closing, join us for this masterclass and we'll show you exactly how to make it happen.
Click on the link below and we'll see you in class.
See you then.